Not every encounter is a coincidence. The late afternoon light stretched long fingers across the station's polished floors, weaving gold through the crowded chaos. Announcements echoed overhead, destinations called out in flat, mechanical tones. But for Liana, it all blurred into a distant hum. She clutched her book closer, weaving between travelers, letting herself be carried by the tides of movement. Her mind wandered, lost in small worries and plans for the evening ahead, until someone, interrupted the rhythm. Across the terminal, in a slice of open space between two clusters of people, stood a figure. Ordinary at first glance, a coat folded over one arm, a satchel slung casually across one shoulder. But it wasn't their appearance that held Liana still. It was the silence that fell inside her. Sudden, absolute. The world seemed to mute itself. The buzz of voices, the shuffle of feet, even the beating of her own heart softened to a whisper. Their eyes met across the distance. Not a lingering stare, not a flirtatious glance, just a moment. A flash of knowing, pure and unspoken. For that heartbeat of time, Liana felt as though she was not seeing a stranger at all, but someone she had once known. Someone written into the marrow of her being, long before she learned to spell her own name. And then the moment passed. The figure was swept into the crowd, swallowed by coats and movement and urgency. Liana blinked, disoriented, as if surfacing from deep water. She shook her head, telling herself it was nothing. Just a trick of tired eyes, a flicker of imagination. Still, as she found her platform and boarded her train, her hands trembled slightly. She gripped the strap of her bag tighter, grounding herself. But deep within, past reason, past doubt, something ancient stirred. A quiet thrum. A chord struck somewhere in the hollow places of her soul. Was it just chance, or something written long ago? The train lurched forward. Liana leaned her forehead against the window, watching the city blur into night, the question trailing her like the faintest echo of a song she almost remembered. The universe doesn't shout. It repeats itself until you listen. In the days that followed the encounter at the station, Liana found herself haunted, not by the face she could barely recall, but by the feeling, that heavy hush, that sudden, unexplainable stillness. She told herself it was nonsense, a trick of tiredness, a slip of emotion. But the signs, the strange little ripples, began to follow her. In the quiet of a bookstore aisle, her fingers brushed the spine of a novel she hadn't been searching for. The author's initials matched the ones she vaguely associated with that figure, though she couldn't be sure. Still, she bought the book without thinking, drawn to it as if it held some message she had yet to decipher. Walking home that evening, a street musician played a melody she hadn't heard in years, a song tied to forgotten childhood memories, stirring something bittersweet and wordless in her chest. She paused, coins clinking into the musician's open case, her breath catching briefly in her throat. Then the dreams began. Soft, fleeting dreams of crowded rooms, where a figure, just out of focus, always stood waiting. Dreams that ended with the same sensation, a pull deep in her chest, like a thread tugging gently from somewhere beyond sight. At first, Liana dismissed each moment as coincidence, but patterns have a way of insisting on themselves. On a rainy afternoon, huddled under the awning of a cafe she had never planned to enter, she saw them again, or thought she did. A glimpse through a steamed window, a familiar silhouette turning away just as she looked up. Her heart thudded painfully against her ribs. Coincidence. She repeated the word like a mantra, willing herself back into the safety of logic. But logic sat uneasily against the growing sense of orchestration threading through her days. She wasn't chasing signs. The signs were chasing her. Late that night, curled in bed with the city's muted hum drifting through her window, Liana pressed a hand to her heart and whispered into the dark, "What are you trying to tell me?" There was no voice, no vision, no dramatic revelation, only the quiet certainty that life was stitching something invisible just beneath the surface, and that soon, very soon, she would have to decide whether to listen. But what was the universe trying to awaken in me? The question lingered as she drifted into sleep, the echoes of dreams already gathering on the other side of consciousness. You don't just meet them, you meet yourself. The cafe was tucked away on a side street Liana rarely traveled, the kind of place you stumbled upon rather than sought out. Its windows glowed warmly against the evening mist, inviting without fanfare. She had no plan to stop. But something, that familiar tug, slowed her steps until she found herself pushing open the heavy door. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of coffee and old wood. Candles flickered on small, scattered tables. Conversations murmured low, blending into the soft strains of a cello playing through hidden speakers. And there, at a table near the back, was a silhouette Liana instantly recognized. The stranger from the station. Their eyes met again, and this time neither looked away. Liana's feet moved of their own accord, carrying her to the counter. She ordered a tea she didn't really want, buying herself a few precious minutes to gather the courage her body seemed to have misplaced. When she finally turned, clutching the too-hot cup between trembling hands, the seat across from them was empty, yet unmistakably waiting. They didn't speak much at first. A nod, a small smile. The silence between them felt less like absence, and more like presence. Full, heavy, expectant. When they finally spoke, it was not about trivialities. The words bypassed the surface altogether, diving deep into strange, tender waters. Childhood dreams, scars unspoken, the small heartbreaks that had shaped them both. Liana found herself saying things she hadn't even known she still carried. Fears she had hidden even from herself. Regrets she had buried so deeply they surfaced now like strangers returning from a long exile. The stranger listened with the kind of attention that was rare, almost unnerving, not trying to fix, not rushing to reply, just holding space for truth to exist. And somewhere within that space, Liana felt the old cracks widen, places inside her heart she had carefully sealed now yawning open. She wanted to run. The vulnerability was too raw, too sudden. It wasn't safe to let someone see so much. Old voices rose in her mind. "You're too much, you're not enough, you'll only get hurt." She smiled politely, made excuses about early mornings and work deadlines, and left before the unraveling could go any further. But as she stepped into the cool night, breathing in the scent of rain on pavement, she knew the truth she couldn't run from. I wasn't falling for them. I was falling into my forgotten self. The city lights blurred around her as she walked, each footstep a silent drumbeat calling her deeper into a story she hadn't realized she was ready to live. Not every fire destroys, some fires reveal. The night pressed heavy against Liana's apartment windows, a velvet hush broken only by the steady ticking of the old clock above her desk. She sat curled in the corner of her bed, journal open across her knees, pen dangling uselessly from her fingers. Words had once been her refuge. Tonight they felt like betrayal. The stranger's face hovered in her memory, not their features but the feeling they had left behind, a mirror held up without judgment, reflecting parts of herself she had tried so long to bury. It wasn't love she feared. It was recognition. The vulnerability had cracked something loose inside her, and now the storm was rising. Jealousy, neediness, fear of abandonment. Emotions she thought she had outgrown clawed their way to the surface, raw and insistent. She hated it, the sharp edges, the desperation, the aching hunger for affirmation. But beneath the self-judgment, another voice stirred, softer, steadier. This isn't weakness. This is truth. The pen touched the paper, hesitantly at first, then faster as the dam inside her broke. "I am terrified of needing anyone," she wrote. "I am terrified of being seen and then left." Tears blurred the ink, but she kept writing, pouring out the hidden ache she had wrapped in armor for years. Not for anyone else, not for validation, but because something within demanded honesty. As the minutes stretched into hours, Liana began to see her pain not as failure but as invitation. A map leading her back to the places she had abandoned inside herself. The storm didn't come to destroy her. It came to show her what needed tending. When she finally set the pen down, her body sagged with exhaustion, but her heart, fragile, bruised, felt strangely lighter. What if they came not to stay, but to awaken me? The thought hovered, tender and terrifying. Outside, the city slept, unaware of the small, sacred battle waged within 4 quiet walls. And inside, For the first time in a long time, Liana slept too, not to escape, but to heal. Healing means loving yourself enough to let go. Morning spilled into the park like a soft tide, gilding the trees and painting the path ahead of Liana in dappled gold. She moved slowly, letting the rhythm of her footsteps match the easy sway of branches overhead. Around her, life unfolded without urgency. Children laughed, chasing bubbles that shimmered in the light. Dogs tugged their owners along muddy trails. The world hummed, not demanding, not rushing, simply existing. Liana watched it all with a quiet awe she hadn't known in months, maybe longer. There had been no dramatic goodbye with the soul mirror, no explosive confrontation, no confessions under rain-drenched skies, just a soft fading, a natural drift apart as the tides of life shifted course. And instead of fighting it, Liana had finally surrendered. It wasn't about giving up, it was about giving space, for herself, for growth, for whatever was meant to unfold next. Sitting on a bench warmed by the morning sun, she closed her eyes and inhaled deeply, letting the scents of earth and fresh-cut grass fill her chest. The pain was still there, tucked into the corners of her heart like a familiar ache, but it no longer ruled her. She understood now. Not every connection was meant to stay. Some were meant to awaken, to remind you of what you forgot, to break open the chambers where dreams and wounds slept side by side. And that awakening and that deep remembering was a gift beyond possession, beyond time. "They didn't come to complete me," Liana whispered into the breeze. "They came to set me free." A bird launched itself into the open sky, its wings flashing silver against the sun. Liana watched until it vanished, a smile playing gently at the corners of her mouth. She rose, brushing stray petals from her skirt, and began walking again, lighter now, not because the past had disappeared, but because she no longer needed to carry it so tightly. Ahead, the path curved into new light, and she followed it, unafraid. Some fingerprints never fade. The night air was crisp, carrying the scent of rain-soaked earth and the faint sweetness of blooming jasmine. Liana walked slowly along the quiet path, her steps guided by the rhythm of her own breath rather than any destination. Above her the sky stretched vast and clean, scattered with stars, ancient fires burning with a steadiness that made her feel both small and infinite at once. There was no music now, no whispered dreams or urgent signs, only the soft chorus of the world breathing around her and the steady heartbeat within. She thought of the one she had met, the soul mirror, and a smile touched her lips, not born of longing but of gratitude. They had not stayed. They had not promised forever, but their presence had left something far more enduring than proximity. A shift, a remembering, an awakening. Liana no longer clung to the idea of destiny written in another's arms. She understood now. The truest echoes are not meant to call you back to someone else. They are meant to call you forward, into your own becoming. She stopped for a moment, tilting her head back to take in the endless canvas above. Each star, a witness to countless beginnings, countless endings, none lesser for their impermanence. And in that quiet, under the indifferent vastness of the cosmos, Liana whispered her own silent vow, to listen to the whispers, to honor the echoes, to trust the unfolding. Some echoes are not meant to call you back, they are meant to call you forward. And forward she went, with the universe humming gently beneath her feet, and the fire within her soul burning steady and bright. Beneath a sky stitched with ancient light, the soul learns its quiet lessons. Not every connection is meant to stay, but every one is meant to shape. Perhaps the true miracle is not finding someone else, but finding the part of ourselves that had been waiting to be seen. And in listening to the echoes, we remember the journey was always toward wholeness,